Hi there, I'm Matt Donnelly from RotoBaller, and let's talk about those starts and sits at the wide receiver position heading into week number 2. Some of your studs, they may have let you down in week number 1, but I'm telling you right now, it is okay to love once again, and I'm looking at you, Jamar Chase. Your Justin Jeffersons, your Chases, your Tyreek Hill, good lord, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown, these are guys you are starting regardless of their matchups each and every single week. So which other receivers can you trust in week number 2? Which receivers should you be fading? Well, I got you covered in this week's Starts and Sits. We are starting with Brandon Ayuk of the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Los Angeles Rams. I have to admit, I was a little worried about Ayuk last week as Purdy returned to action after that elbow surgery. That was a mistake. That one's on me. I'm not sure he's going to repeat that 8-catch, 129-yard, 2-touchdown performance, but I am more than comfortable with Brock Purdy, which means the 49ers, they better find a way to pay this man quickly because each and every week, that price tag is only going to go up. Los Angeles, to their credit, had a good week last week against Seahawks receivers, but this feels more like an outlier type performance from a passing defense that struggled outside of Jalen Ramsey just a season ago. My number 2 start at the wide receiver position is DeAndre Hopkins versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's go back to the well one more time when it comes to DeAndre Hopkins. He isn't exactly the same receiver that Tyreek Hill is, who absolutely crushed this Chargers secondary just a week ago, but he's pretty good in his own right. He still managed 7 receptions for 65 yards last week against the Saints. LA's run defense, it's not very good. In fact, they may actually end up bringing an extra body into the box to help them deal with Derrick Henry, who will be fresh after taking last week's game basically as a preseason warm-up. And no, I'm not worried about Derrick Henry being outsnapped by Tajay Spears. Another wide receiver that I'm starting is Keenan Allen of those Chargers versus that very same Titans team. 3 different Saints receivers each had 5 catches and 60 yards while posting 49 fantasy points against that Titans secondary. In a game against the Dolphins, Allen had a 29% target share, 185 air yards, which trailed only Tyreek Hill and accounted for 46% of the Chargers' total air yards. Chris Olave, he was 9th in air yards against the Saints. Add that all up and Allen is going to have a very, very good fantasy week. And number 4 wide receiver I'm starting is Jahan Dotson versus Denver. We saw what Jacoby Myers did last week, operating as the number 2 wide receiver, working out of the slot. In week number 1, Dotson worked out of the slot 59% of the time, which is significant from the previous season. In college, Dotson had more success from the slot in both target share and yards per route. This week, that trend should continue as Terry McLaurin likely draws Patrick Surtain, which allows mismatches for Dotson in that slot. Wide receivers that I'm sitting, Garrett Wilson versus the Dallas Cowboys. Listen, this isn't about you, Garrett Wilson. This Dallas Cowboys defense is that good. Trevon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore are arguably the best corner duo in the league. It's not like you can move Wilson around to avoid a tough matchup. Now, I get it. The Giants, they ain't got no receivers that are anywhere near Garrett Wilson caliber, and the weather was not ideal for passing. But if I can avoid anyone against this Cowboys defense, I am doing just that. Dallas had 7 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 2 picks, and so much pressure that it's hard to see Zach Wilson and Garrett Wilson getting in a rhythm together out there this week. Sit Drake London versus Arthur Smith. Yes, I said sit him against Arthur Smith. Hate the Drake all you want, especially when your quarterback ends up getting more receptions than your stud receiver. You're going to have to find a place on your bench for said stud receiver. Coach Smith, he basically hates your fantasy team. He's basically come out there and said that, and it's simple as that. Atlanta, they also play a Packers team this week, and London is going to see plenty of Jair Alexander, who, with some help, limited to DJ Moore last week to 2 catches and just 25 yards. Although, if London did have 2 catches and 25 yards, that's like a 200% increase in production. And finally, sit Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. I don't even need to hear what other options you have. If someone says, should I start Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney over so-and-so? The answer is not going to be Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney. Here are your quick hitters and fades for week number 2 at wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk against the Rams. If Ayuk is healthy, you are playing him. I don't care what the Rams did to Lockett and Metcalf. DeAndre Hopkins versus the Chargers. He's no Tyreek Hill, but he ain't half bad. Chargers will need help to stop the run, leaving Nuke one-on-one. Keenan Allen versus Tennessee. Titans' run defense is good. Not so much against the pass, and Allen, he's been seeing plenty of targets and air yards. Top 12 week, incoming. Jahan Dotson versus Denver. Jacoby Myers, he hurt Denver from the slot last week. Dotson looks to repeat the feat after 59% of his snaps come from the slot last week. Sit Garrett Wilson versus Dallas. It doesn't matter if it was Aaron Rodgers or Zach Wilson throwing the ball. This Cowboys defense is a different beast. Hate the Drake like Arthur Smith. You can't trust Drake London. Really, Desmond Ridder, more receptions than Drake London? I've heard enough. And nevermore, Sky Moore, and just never ever, Kadarius Toney. Be sure to like and subscribe to the RotoBaller YouTube channel for plenty more great fantasy football analysis.